personal development, they want to see progression. They want to see you know, looking at your continuous development and looking at it, you know, and reflecting upon where you are now.
No problem. Thanks.
And what actions you can take to get there as well. So I think let's just focus on that. Let's just think about current state, future state, actions, how we're going to get there. So that's just me breaking it down really simply for you. But let's get started here. So this unit, or you know, this topic, it is designed for individuals ready to take the next steps, you know, the next steps to a career development, to them pushing themselves a little bit, so then being able to improve themselves personally or professionally. And you know, I always say it, but people are the most valuable asset and resource to any organization. So for an organization, investing time and money into personal development is only going to, you know, benefit the organization, but it'll also give the employee some motivation to understand, well, they want to invest in me and they want to improve in me. So, you know, when you are planning for development, always remember that it's not just you that's going to be benefiting from that development, you know, opportunity. So bear that in mind. So let me just move on and give you a couple of definitions, because you do know I like to start with definitions. So the CPD, so the certification service, they believe that CPD is a holistic commitment of professionals towards the enhancement of personal skills and proficiency throughout their career. So it's basically about always considering what you can learn and how you can learn it and how you can improve on something. So continuous professional development, it's common in some, more common in some industries than others. So for example, teaching, you know, you are advised when you first start teaching to, you know, sign up to a couple of professional bodies, so you keep updated with information always. You'll be updated, like with ILM, for example, with, you know, quarterly updates, with a, you know, a booklet, with webinars, with, you know, any sort of like major changes within the field that you're actually working in. So the NHS will probably be another one, and, you know, healthcare will probably be another one. So where it's, you know, it's believed that CPD is essential for you to be able to keep up to date with knowledge. So a CPD is a combination of approaches, ideas and techniques to help you manage your own learning. And there's loads of different ways to keep up to date with your CPD. It's not just, oh, I'm going to go and pay for this course and it's going to cost me loads of money and it's going to take me loads of time to do it, and that's what I'm going to be doing. You know, CPD can be, you know, networking. It could be attending seminars, conferences, watching a webinar, keeping up to date, as I said, with industry updates, policies, regulations, standards, things like that. So there's loads of different ways, and it focuses on results. You know, it's about understanding your practice in the real world as well. The most important thing for everybody to understand is that what works well for one person will not work for another, and we'll touch upon that in a minute. So wherever you are in your career now, I mean, I've had a continuous development plan for years now, and I update it even with when we have a standardization meeting here. You know, we'll have an important meeting, and if I've learned something from it and I think, well, you know, can evidence that I've learned something there, I'll add that to my CPD. It's important, you know, to keep up to date with it, and employers are increasingly aware of the importance of investing in their staff and their CPD. And usually it, you know, it links clearly in with like the one-to-ones, the reviews, the appraisals, things like that. So remember that, you know, CPD is ongoing, it's not static, and we will touch upon that in a bit more details. I have provided a definition for personal development here, so the act or process of developing, growth and progress. So personal development, and that's from dictionary.com. So if we were to break down this unit, and you know, the most important thing for you to do to be able to break down a unit initially is go on and have a look at the specification. That breaks it down, and that tells you that, you know, the first point for this is to be able to review personal work-related development and experience to develop aims and objectives. So look at the specification. You come onto a unit, you look at the specification, and the first thing that you do is you say, okay, what do I need to do here? What's expected of me? And then you can say, right, well, these are the learning outcomes. So, you know, first I'm going to be doing this and learning outcome 1. Second, I'm going to be doing this, learning outcome 2. And thirdly, I'm going to be doing this. Now, sometimes it can be a bit daunting when you look at the what you think, gosh, where am I going to start? We'll start at learning outcome 1, and maybe just say to yourself, well, I want to finish learning outcome 1 by the end of this week or the week after. And it helps you to break it down, the assignment, into sections. Now, the first section looks at an element of reflection. So it's asking you to reflect on what you've done before that has led to where you are now. So, you know, it's good to be able to assess your current state and where you are now in order for you to be able to make a plan. So that's the first part of it. So you're thinking about what skills, knowledge, behavior, you know, academic qualifications, experience, you know, well, where are you now and what's led you to where you are now? So be able to review personal and work related. But what I want you to focus on when you're looking at this specification is that's not the only essential document for you to look at before you get started. I want you to look at the assignment brief and the marking criteria within that assignment brief as well, because that'll help you to sort of consider what you're going to do, what your plan of action is for getting started. And then there is also, only for like probably 5 units within the whole of the level 3 and 5 frameworks, there's an additional guidance sheet, and this is for one of them. Please bear in mind that this unit is worth 15 credits. So the assignment guidance for this one, you know, it is going to help. It's going to help you, really, really is going to help you. And I've actually been reviewing this and thinking, you know, it really, really does break down. So the first part of it gives you some tips within this. And it says, you know, use a brief introduction to aid the context around your role, you know, and it doesn't really form part of the workout, so don't worry about it. So it's basically like an abstract that you're going to be providing. And then it, you know, it asks you to use the different ACs within the marking, so the assessment criteria, to form subheadings. Again, ILM love subheadings. They love you to break. They don't like condensed text. They like you to break it down into sections, and it's good for you to be able to do it that way as well. And then, you know, it points out to referencing. Now for this one, referencing is really important. This is a complex unit. And, you know, if you're thinking about personal development, you might want to link it to different things that you've done in the past, or policies, procedures. You might want to link it to standards, regulation, to job descriptions that you might want to attach as an appendix. So consider what you can add to that. And remember, this document, you know, there's only a couple of them for the ILM unit to use it. So use this specification, use the last page, the indicative content, as it gives you loads of guidance as well. So let's talk about the CPD cycle. The reason why I wanted to point this to you, you know, right at the start, is it really breaks down what you're going to do. Now, bearing in mind that, you know, the first learning outcome here asks you to evaluate prior learning and work experience. So the first point of the CPD cycle asks you to identify where you are now, you know, what you know already. And you might want to do a self-assessment, gain some feedback from people. You might want to look at a past review, appraisal, maybe look at your contracts, your roles and responsibilities. You might be the type of person that most middle managers are, that you know, you started with all these roles and responsibilities and you've been given loads and loads and loads and loads more. And now that they're saying, you know, you're probably going to be in line for a promotion in the next year or so. So you might then want to say, okay, well, let's have a look at the job description and the specification for that promotion. And is there any gaps in my knowledge there? Right, let's have a little look where about I am now and how I'm going to get there. So that's what CPD is about. It's about managing where you are now and where you want to be and how you're going to be there. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do it in 5 months. You know, it is suggested that this unit be completed between 6 and 12 months, and any sort of CPD will usually take a little while. You know, they say for any ILM qualification from registration, you've got between 3 months and 3 years to complete, you know. So the reason why they give you that long is because they know that leaders and managers, you know, have different roles and responsibilities, and they are usually quite complex. And they are responsible for quite a lot. So it's understandable that, you know, if you're signed up to a qualification, you see yourself, you want to complete this by that time, you know, things can get in the way. So, you know, it is understandable. Obviously, some people will get given strict guidelines by their organisation on when they need to complete something. So that's different, you know, that's more of a guided development plan. So I really like Stephen Covey's quote here: to learn and not do is really not to learn. To know and not to do is really not to know. So it's about, like, you know, if you're not putting into practice what you're actually learning, it's easy to lose that knowledge as well. So once you've identified where you are now, you've done a couple of self-assessments, and if you need any, you know, direct self-assessments, go on to our career toolkit. There's absolutely loads, and the more you provide at the start, you know, you can actually reflect upon it at the end. So you can maybe do them self-assessments again, or get another feedback questionnaire at the end, and then say, well, this is where it was then, this is where I am now, this is how far I've come, and then I might want to review it moving forward. So you're putting together a plan once you've considered where you are now and your past experience and your recognition of prior learning towards what you're doing. And you might want to use your ILP as well for that, because when I do a self-assessment, one of the questions I do ask is what knowledge, skills or behaviour you think might help with this course. And you might say, well, I've been managing for 2 years, and, you know, I've got no academic qualifications to back it up, but I've been managing people and processes, and managing risk and health and safety, and, you know, so it's all of these little things that can go towards maybe this qualification or other qualifications to move you forward in the future. So what's your plan going to consist of? Now, there's a couple of templates on Moodle to help you with your planning, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. But, you know, you've got to try and break down your plan so it's actually achievable. So the actions, you know, are doable. Like some people have written in the past to gain more knowledge in IT. That's not really an action, is it? But how are you going to achieve that? You need to plan to actually achieve that outcome. How's that going to be measured? What are you actually going to do? You know, so we'll break that down in a little bit more detail in a minute. So then acting is actually doing something. So as part of this unit and a number of different units, you need to be demonstrated that you're actually being able to act on that plan, and then reflect upon what you've actually written down in that plan, and actually be able to apply it in real time, and then be able to share your knowledge, maybe with your, you know, your learning supervisor, or, you know, your mentor or coach or manager, in order to be able to improve and move forward. So consider, you know, in the CPD cycle, each element, and consider where about you are with that. Okay. So let's just break down the prior learning in a little bit more detail. So prior learning is about checking your knowledge and your ability against learning objectives. It's about learning through something, or demonstrating that you already understand something through being like assessed on it. So let me give you an example. When I was a vocational coaching assessor, I went out to a number of different workplaces, and if I could have a professional discussion with somebody on a specific topic and they demonstrated to me that they understood something, I could mark that off as complete. So they could say that, well, I've been doing this for years. Why do I need to do this? Okay, well, demonstrate to me that you've got recognition of prior learning by having a professional discussion about how to plan a project, for example, or how to complete a one-to-one review, or how to provide feedback in a constructive way, or, so it's prior learning is about demonstrating that you understand something, and that might even be providing a certificate that you've done a first aid course, for example, but maybe you want to do an advanced first aid course. So you might provide recognition of prior learning that you've already completed one, so you can then enroll onto an advanced one. Same here with, the way we do the management pathways. If you were to complete a level 3 certificate and you wanted to use your 13 credits towards your level 3 diploma, then we just use that certificate as evidence of prior learning to be able to then boost you up to the diploma. So just remember that, it's not all just about a certificate or academic qualification. It can be about work experience. And ILM do understand that with leadership and management qualifications, there are people that have been working in leadership and management roles for years, and sometimes they just want to cement their knowledge with an academic qualification, which is absolutely fine. They don't mind that. And when I was an assessor, we used a range of different assessment methods to be able to assess somebody's knowledge and understanding, to demonstrate their competence and their understanding within that specific area of work. Here, our assessment methods is all assignment based, and some evidence production to be able to validate understanding and competence in different areas. But that in this assignment, if you can want to validate some sort of recognition of prior learning with, for example, a reference from a past workplace, you can do that as well. And then consider, when you're thinking about recognition of prior learning and work experience, when you're talking about this in 1.1, that sometimes it might be needed to support your claim with evidence. And that might even be just having your line manager inform that you can actually do something. So an example might be, you might say that you one of your areas of continuous professional development might be to work on your critical thinking skills or emotional intelligence in order to be able to present confidently in trade shows, for example. And then your line manager might say, well, I can confirm that she has got competence in managing meetings within the workplace. So that's prior learning, and that's a work experience, and then that's something for you to be able to build upon to move forward. There are a number of different experiences about how you can build upon what you already know to be able to enhance your understanding. So remember that. Don't just think you always need to start from scratch when you're working on your personal development, because you might already know stuff. You just might need to back up that understanding with maybe something more formal learning, really. So personal development planning, where do you start? You think about, okay, well, where am I now? This is where I am now. This is my job role. These are my roles and responsibilities. This is where I lie now in relation to levels of understanding. And sometimes it might be important to then consider, well, where do I want to be? It might be career-wise, it might be qualification-wise, it might be promotion-wise, it might be that you're on different bands within your workplace and you want to move up a band, and you might need to do a couple of qualifications in order to get to that band level. So number of different ways that you can think about where you want to be. But try and be honest with yourself. Say to yourself, where do I want to be in a year? Where do I see myself in 3 years? And where would I like to be? in 5 years. And then from there, you can then think, okay, well, how can I plan to get there? You know, think about short term, think about medium term, think about long term, think about what you need to do, what constraints might get in your way, or what resources might you need to get there. So this is what you're going to be thinking about, all of these different areas, in order to start personal development planning. So this is included within the information pack, and be sure to look at the information pack. It is being slightly edited at the minute, but the old one is there. Because the information packs at the end of the day provide you with an overview of everything that's included. They're constructed based on the unit specification and the final page, the indicative content. So please remember that. So, you know, that's one of the first things you want to be looking at after the unit spec and the assignment brief, just reading through the information pack and maybe completing some of the tasks in it to help you build upon the knowledge in that specific area. So I like this graph. I think it helps you to consider. I mean, you can use tools like a SWOT analysis as well, looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, and being able to consider, okay, this is where I am now. How can I build upon my weaknesses and turn them into strengths? How can I utilize or, you know, really consider them opportunities that might be available to me? And, you know, how can I really capture them and be able to pull what I can from them? How can I monitor threats and make sure that they don't get in my way? And how can I use my strengths to be able to push myself to achieve? And moving back to the questions I've just asked, you are thinking about, where am I now? Thinking about your current situation. What are you good at? What do you need to work on? What could help you along your way? And that might be people in the workplace. That might be your family, you know, helping you to get there. I know that with me, any qualification that I've got, you know, I always say to my partner, are you okay if I go ahead and do this? Because I know that some of my weekends or evenings are going to be, you know, taken up from doing the qualifications. So, you know, it might be useful to consider everything when you are looking at development opportunity, and then think about what can stop you. And, you know, time is probably the biggest restraint that, you know, any of my learners say is stopping them. But at the end of the day, it's your time. You know, that's the way I think about it. It's your time. And if, sorry, someone's having a lot of difficulties with the sound. I'll give you a minute, just to try and come back there. So yeah, constraints. What other constraints can we think of? So obviously resources could be a constraint as well. Thinking about, you know, technology, thinking about internet, thinking about how you're going to access the resources. And I mean, one of the things when I was reviewing the current course that I'm completing now was, you know, the access to the learning. Using an online platform that's flexible like Hardo and works well for me. Maybe classroom teaching might work well for other people. And we'll look at, you know, we'll look at them in a minute. So what do I want to be? What no, that's quite a you know, it is, you know, you are thinking about the vision for yourself, your personal vision. What does success look like to you? Where do I want to be in this many years? And that's, you know, professional, personal. And think about in relation to, you know, finances and promotions and job title, and think about then how can you get there? And you are the best way to, you know, actually be consistent in your continuous development is breaking that down into short-term, medium-term, and long-term objectives. So the next is then to consider what you're going to include in that personal development plan or continuous development plan, whatever you want to call it. And there is a couple of templates. I've actually probably got about 20 templates, but one of the ones that I think is really good for this unit in particular, I've added in the resources section. One of the reasons why I like this section is because this template specifically is because it's got an element of reflection in it. And I think at the end of the day, this is quite a reflective unit. You need to be demonstrating that you can reflect on your practice in order to succeed in this unit. So I think that's why I do like this one. So the first part is the area of practice. So you're looking at what the skill or the qualification is that you're going to be needing to do. Then you're going to be looking at the outcome. So what will be the benefit? What will you learn from it? So you might say, I'm completing a level 5 qualification in order to improve my a level 5 ILM qualification in leadership and management, to improve my leadership and management skills, knowledge and behaviour. Then the activity to meet the outcome. So how is that going to be achieved? An online, flexible qualification and course completed within 1 year. So you'll give a completion and review date. It will be reviewed monthly by my line manager or tutor, and then you'll put the priority for completion, and maybe you'll say whether that's going to be a short term, long term or medium term. So it might be a high priority, might be a low priority, and then what evidence or how are you going to measure that that's completed? And it's usually by a certificate if it's a certificate qualification, but that might be an assessment. So it might be that you've been you're going to shadow someone in another department in order to create a new knowledge base for their departments in order to be able to liaise with them a little bit more effectively. And that might be reviewed by your line manager and the line manager of that department, but that might be a medium priority. And you might evidence that by just completing a small assessment or test or professional discussion just to clarify your understanding in that area. So there's a couple of different ways that you can evidence that you've actually completed that. And with this assignment, it is important that when you are actually doing stuff, you're finding ways to evidence and attaching them as evidence. Okay. So yeah, adding an additional column for an evaluation, whether you think it went well, whether you think it didn't go well, what will be your opinion moving forward? Would you need to do you think it fulfilled what you needed, what you initially needed to do? And it's important that you think of ways to be reflective, because I mean, if you missed the last session, which you probably maybe did because there was a lot of technical problems, it is being recorded this week, is on reflective practice. And in order to grow as a professional, it's important to reflect upon your skills, behaviors, attitudes, knowledge, yourself, in order to be able to say, well, how did that go? How did I deal with that? How could I improve moving forward? What else could I do to grow? So adding a column for an evaluation, or just having a reflective log of some sort, is quite important for this unit, and quite important for a really good, professional development. So a couple of things that I'd like you to just think about for this unit is, when you are putting together your plan, you are thinking about your prior learning, your work experience, you are thinking about maybe if you want to do a training needs analysis, whether you want to do a gap analysis, whether you want to do a SWOT analysis, whether you want to consider, why you're putting that plan in place, what have you identified to consider why you're putting them actions in that plan. So think about that. It might be that you've just had a review or an appraisal and they've said you're ready for promotion, but you just haven't got the qualifications to put it, or you're just lacking these skills, but maybe next year. So it's something you to build upon. It might be that your current role in your job that you're actually working in at the moment, you're thinking, I need out of this role. And you might be thinking, okay, well, that's my dream job. What do I need to get there? Okay, let's start planning for that now. So yeah, think about why you're putting what you're putting in that plan. Okay. And then that brings you on to 1.2. So 1.2 is, you need to consider when devising that PDP, CDP, and a reflective log or some sort of reflection, that you consider how and what you will assess, which criteria you'll use to make the judgments and decides if them aims, objectives and priorities are achievable. So let me give you an example. I put together the 1.2, the actual question asks, assess personal development aims, objectives and priorities. So you've put that plan together, you're happy with it. That's CPD together, you think, right, okay, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I need to do to get there. Now, what you need to do then in 1.2 is assess them goals, objectives, and say whether you think that they are going to be achievable. So when you're assessing them, you're saying, okay, this is why I've chosen these. This links with this. This is why I think I am going to be able to do this in, 6 weeks. This is why I'm going to be able to do it in this time. So you're pulling specific criteria from that plan in order to form an assessment and make an informed judgment on whether you think that that's necessary. So if you were to say the priority was high, but realistically, whether that's only high in your eyes and not from the organisation's point of view, then maybe identifying that in the assessments and the reasons why you believe that could be justified. Okay, so when we now go on to providing a justification and rationale, I have provided a template in the useful course, in the resources section under 521, and I've provided you a template on a development opportunity for coaching, because I thought I'd give you a bit of an idea. Now, following on from your assessment here, you will be needing to justify the needs for a development action. So let me give you an example. On my previous appraisal, I had to justify why I wanted to complete a specific qualification. Now, I gave them a couple of different options for this qualification, but gave them ideas and my opinions as to why I think one will be more suitable than the rest. Obviously, when you are justifying something, it might be because you need funding, because you need time, because you need resources. But one of the key points to a justification or a rationale for something is for you to be able to give them benefits or, give them reasons, provide them a scope, and basically be able to justify a need for something. So a couple of people have completed this unit and haven't completed the template and have had it referred because they're not really justifying something, they're providing their opinion as to why. So breaking it down to provide a justification in a rationale that I think is really, really important. So I've pointed out here what the rationale should include. So you're justifying the needs of the development option. And, it might be a point that, there will be a point within this assignment where you'll look at different development options. And that might be different learning vehicles, such as classroom learning, one-to-one coaching, mentoring, shadowing. It might be that you want to be released twice a month for networking. It might be that you want to go into a seminar. It might be that you want to attend more meetings in relation to a specific topic. So there's a load of different things, but if you're providing a rationale to your line manager or manager, you need to be providing them a clear goal. Why do you want to do it? What's the reason behind it? Give them an overview of what you're actually going to be doing, a scope of what you're going to be doing. Highlight the benefits to you. And, make sure you highlight the benefits to them, but leave that sorted to the end so you can use that as part of a negotiation for what you need. Provide them with long-term and short-term objectives and basically a bit of a description of how you're going to get there. So that might include the content of the course or whatever you're going to be doing. Also inform them of the risk of doing nothing. If you do absolutely nothing and you stay stagnant, well, what's going to happen then? I mean, for somebody, who finds continuous development quite really, really important, the risk of me doing no qualification is that I wouldn't be challenged in different areas that my knowledge and skills wouldn't be able to grow. So, the risk of absolutely doing nothing would be you know, me not being challenged, and it wouldn't give me any drive. And you know, that's me myself, but the risk of doing nothing could be that standards or regulations would not be met. It could be that you wouldn't have that opportunity for promotion within that workplace. So maybe, you know, you might need to fund it yourself and be able to go and look elsewhere for something that might be available. So, you know, that there's a range of things to include within the rationale, but using the template is advised. When you're thinking about your different options for developments and your different development vehicles, and the different opportunities for development, think about your learning styles. Now, there's loads of different types. So you could be thinking of visual, auditory, you could think about pragmatics, activists, reflectors. There's loads of different theories. You might be looking at Fleming's learning style theory, Honey and Mumford's. In our information pack, if you click on it says click, there's actually a link to Honey and Mumford. So maybe complete this at the start, and that will help you in your justification. It'll also help you to assess the potential development aims as well. And it might mean that if you're completing a classroom based theory based qualification, it might take you longer to complete because your learning style doesn't fit in with that. But it might be that that's what's necessary in order for you to be able to meet regulations, in order for you to be able to meet the quality standards in your organisation. So, you know, have a little think about that, and that might help you towards your assessments. Okay. So moving swiftly on, let's have a little look now at learning outcomes too. Sorry, let me just first and foremost say that, you know, in your assessment, as long as you're pointing to specifics within your plan and then thinking of ways that you can use that criteria to formulate an assessment as to whether, you know, that's going to work, whether that's not going to work, you're going to do okay there. But use the guidance sheet for ILM because it really helps you to break that down. Okay. And then 2.1 asks you to evaluate development opportunities for the long-term, short-term, medium term. So remember that evaluation is asking a little bit more. You're thinking about positives, negatives, your opinion, and if you want to go past, you're justifying that opinion with evidence. Okay, so you might say that, you know, that online flexible learning isn't for you. You haven't got the motivation, you haven't got the enthusiasm for it. I always say to people for this one, you can include a table to evaluate options for the long term, medium and short term, and point out what options are available to you. You can even break down the headings into pros, cons, my opinion, my line manager's opinion, or, you know, theories, you know, or researched opinions on these techniques for a specific learning style, for example. To think about different things. So an example would be, another example would be, for me, you might say, classroom learning, going out to, say, a classroom, just going out to, like, say, college or something, 1 day a week. I thought that might be a positive for me because I like the interaction with other people. Whereas a negative one for me would be that I'd be away from my work desk, so I wouldn't have the time to, I'd be missing out on a day of being able to respond to learners, have support calls, etc. It might also be a negative to the organisation because they might need to find somebody to fill in for me on them days. But it might be a positive that you can get it done quicker because it's more regimented on the, you know, the way they form assessments maybe. So there might be the positives, the costs. So think about costs, resources, you know, time. They're probably the 3 main things to consider in an evaluation for each development option, but there might be more. Okay, so let's now look at being able to undertake. So you've got to here be able to, using a reflective log, you can say, oh, well, I've been involved in planning this and I've had a one-to-one appraisal and I've done this. You can put specific dates on a reflective log. You can talk about how you plan something. You might even say, you know, after thinking about it, I've removed that from the plan and added something else. Following the evaluation, for example, or following feedback from somebody. But, you know, thinking about all of the different options, the different opportunities, and thinking about different areas that might be able, that you might need to, that you can talk about when you're looking at them. And then you might want to reflect upon, oh, following on from the evaluation, I've removed this or put this on or whatever, and so on and so forth. So consider the delivery methods, whether it's formal or informal. So remember, formal, say, assessment methods are measured on specific criteria or tests or something like that. Informal could be more like, you know, just having some feedback off somebody. But think about which one will effectively allow you to meet the personal development aim and goal the most efficiently, the most effectively. Okay. Then the next element of this unit asks you to justify undertaking the plan development activities. Now think about it, right? If you're going into an appraisal and you're saying, I want to do this CPD, I want to be released 1 day a week to go to university, I want to have 4 hours out of the week to be able to complete this qualification, I want you to pay for this course or pay for half of this course. You know, it might take an element of negotiation. You need to be in this for this assignment to be evidencing that you can that you've negotiated something. You know, you need to be evidencing that you can explain what you've done in order to be able to agree that. So just remember that negotiation, you might be negotiating the cost, the time, the resources, the constraints, and showing them your action plan in order to be able to get something approved. Sometimes it takes ages to get it approved as well. You know, you might need to get it approved by your line manager, who then gets it approved by senior staff, who then gets it approved by the CEO, who then gets it approved by the finance department, so on and so forth. This is probably the most important. You need to evidence learning and development for this assignment and for any sort of reflective element of professional development within any unit. So there's loads of different units within the ILM that cover continuous professional development. You need to be providing some sort of evidence to ensure that, you know, you're getting the greater mark. So using a reflective log will give you loads of information. You know, when I first done my teaching years ago, I started a reflective log. I do sort of keep it up from time to time. Sometimes I don't do it as much as I do, but specifically when I'm doing a qualification, I will always keep it up. But reflecting on practice is really important. And if you reflect well, whether that's, you know, on a computer or whether that's in a diary, in a notebook, whether you want to keep a recording of it, if you reflect upon your practice well, and then you go back on to evidence something, you can even use quotations from that reflective log in the assignment. So it'll allow you to consider how each action links to the original aims as well. So considering what you've done, why you've done it, what you've learned from it, and how will you put it into action in the future. And then, you know, all of these things will allow you to reflect on practice and improve to move forward. So the last section is about review and reflect. And as I said, if you've got a reflective log or if you've reflected in some way, it will allow you to do that. But try and use some theory here as well. Try and consider Schoen's reflective theory, Gibbs's reflective theory. Consider different areas for reflection. And then remember, for a review and for a review to be effective, you might want to use some of these things: a performance review, a self-assessment, self-appraisal, feedback, 360-degree questionnaire, or you might be wanting to measure your KPI. So you're saying, so here it's about thinking, how can I evaluate whether I've been effective, whether that that development opportunity has allowed me to be more effective in my role? How can I review the effectiveness of what I have actually done? And in order to be able to do any sort of review, you know, you're looking at the overall picture, it's important to provide evidence for that. So for this unit, starting with getting some feedback on your performance, starting with doing a couple of self-assessments, starting with knowing where your current state is now, and then at the end being able to do some sort of review on yourself just to see how far you've come. And one of my favorite, you know, tools to be able to use for this assignment, anyone who's basically on our ILM programs, you get a year's free access to ILM Toolkit, to the Institute of ILM, and I would have sent you the link with your registration number for you to get that access. But there's an e-learning tool on there that looks at 49 different components of leadership, and it measures your understanding of that for you to then be able to grow. And you know, I use it myself. I think it's absolutely amazing, and it's got connected webinars, worksheets, and spotlight sheets as well that can help you gain the knowledge to be able to effectively be able to conquer the self-assessment on that. So have a look at that. But for this unit particularly, it's asking for a critical review, so you're not just thinking about your own thoughts, you need to be pulling from other people's thoughts as well. So you need to be getting feedback of somebody else. You might need to wait until your next appraisal, your next review. You might want to do another gap analysis. You might need to, you might want to look at measuring yourself against standards and going from there. But it's about being able to demonstrate that you can measure your performance. And as I just mentioned before, reflection's really important, and there's loads of reflective theory. And I think that in order to be able to provide a critical review, you know, pulling from others and thinking outside the box, is to think critically, using other people's ideas, thoughts, theories, models, tools, techniques, such as Gibbs has all shown, or other, you know, the many of different types of reflective practitioners that you can use to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm thinking, this is what happens, these are my feelings, this is my evaluation, this is my conclusion, this is how I see sense of the situation, and this is my action plan to move forward. And as I mentioned before, within this critical review, you might want to provide another personal development plan with adapted actions or updated action. You might say, I've done this, done this, done this, in order to be able to move forward with it. So resources, I know that I have mentioned the ILM guidance sheet. I could not be more recommending that one. Honestly, it's brilliant. And make sure that there's evidence added, and make sure that there's some sort of reflection, like a reflective log, a reflective journal, even just some key points. We need something to be able to demonstrate that you've actually done the work. And having a reflective journal is probably the easiest way to do that. Consider providing the initial PDP and one at the end, and always remember that keeping it open over 6 to 12 months. Now, you can go a little bit back in time if your company is really good with CPD and PDP and your appraisal was last year and you've already started doing some development actions. That's absolutely fine. Start then. You know, say, you know, I started on my CPD journey back in January. I know that we're on April now, but reflecting upon what I've done. The only thing is, you can't provide justification or rationale for something that you already have worked on. You need to, you know, do that as and when, and negotiate in order to get approval for that specific thing. So yeah, just remember that all of the resources that are added to Moodle for any unit are added for a specific reason. And you know, hopefully everything that is included in there will only allow you to be able to develop your knowledge and expertise to be able to get top marks within that unit. And again, I have just mentioned the Institute of Leadership and Management and how amazing it is. I can't, you know, I can't say how much better it is than I think. But you know, once you complete the e-learning tool, you can then you know, go from that e-learning tool and complete like a self-assessment, and it gives you like a report. You can include that report as an appendix, and then what it does is it tells you what you're good at and what you're not so good at, but it also allows you to look at these 49 different components, such as teamwork and having a healthy workplace, resilience, etc. And then once you complete one whole component, so for example, on here I've completed authenticity and vision, you can then book a certifier call, which costs like 25 quid. And then that certifier call will then give you a badge, and you've got like an e-badge then. So you can use all of this to demonstrate maybe a short or medium term goals in relation to completing this. That might help. Yeah, so use it. It's free. It's yours. It's your free annual membership, and you'd have to pay for it after a year anyway. So to use it while you've got it, really, from the date of registration.
Oh, but this one was good.
So that concludes our session today. Hopefully we haven't had no technical difficulties, and I'll be able to keep this recorded and add it to the playlist. If anyone has any questions in relation to this, please contact me. People, more often than not, in relation to this unit, will get the first one referred, because there is a lot to it. We're 15 credits there's going to be. It's the most credits for any unit within the ILM framework. But if you want to send me your plan, so maybe complete first learning outcome, and send me your plan of what you want to do, then I can have a little review of it and just give you some feed forwards before, no like summative feedback, but some feed forwards and whether you're on the right track for it. Okay, so thank you for attending this session today. And if you found it useful, and if you do complete this unit as well, please complete the survey on the unit to give us some feedback on that as well. Thank you. Have a good day. I will leave this session open after the recording. Just if anyone has any questions, just add it to the